Hey guys, this is John with another episode of the Meatgistics podcast. We've got Patrick behind the camera.
What's up?
We do not have Austin today. He pulled the last minute sick card or something, who knows. Didn't want to be here with you. I, on the other hand, would never miss this and disappoint our wonderful listeners. Before we get going, I'm going to score some brownie points with Patrick and remind you to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, and wherever you're listening, leave us a 5-star review. It really does help. All right, so let's get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about, I found an old article on Meatgistics that I had written. This is through the random category that we made a couple months ago. This one came up. It's from June of 2017, so figure less than a year, that I had been involved with Meatgistics. And this article is under tips and tricks, and it's the top 5 mistakes made when making homemade snack sticks. Now, early on, we learned that putting top 5, anything like that, into an article really does help the viewership.
Oh, people love it.
Especially on Facebook. Like, it just goes nuts. We did it like 1 or 2 more times, kind of looked at the type of interaction it was getting, and we're like, all right, no, while the numbers are there, it's not really doing what we want it to do. We still do occasionally do it when we have we're doing a video right now on the best meat hacks for making cured sausage. When we release that, it will be, top something, whatever, meat hacks for making cured sausage. But we definitely try not to abuse it or do too much of it. What I thought would be cool is to go over this list, look at how I had them ranked, what was in there. And now that I'm far more experienced, I've been doing this 6 years now.
What, reading?
Speaking is the hard part for me, Patrick, not reading. Especially like reading out loud, terrible. But go over that list and still see if I feel that list is the same, if things should be in a different order, anything like that. So we will post a link to this post on the Meatgistics post for the podcast. All right. So article is learn about the top 5 mistakes made when making homemade snack sticks. Number 1 we have is you're not using a binder. I was going
to say, I knew people, to me, any sausage making, the hardest thing to wrap my head around is what to put in it to not only make it safe, but to make it, appealable, right? Binder's right up there, right?
Binder's definitely up there. I'm not going to say it's the number 1 thing anymore. I think probably when I started working here, had no idea there was such a thing as a binder in a sausage. When I came into this department, the first couple of batches I made, I didn't use binder, and then I did start using it. I'm like, oh, that is a significant difference.
What is it? What's the actual definition of it?
So binder's just something that's going to help the water, meat, fat, anything in it bind together, stay where it's supposed to be. There's obviously... You can use the Sure Gel, which is milk-based. You can use the soy protein blend. And we've talked about carrot fiber and super bind kind of being in that category, but also kind of being outside of that category. So at number 1, no, I definitely would not put this at number 1 any longer. I would say the number 1 mistake people make is... maybe it is kind of tied in. It's protein extraction. The number 1 mistake people make when making any cured sausage is they don't mix it long enough. You need to mix it until all of that meat is really tacky, sticky. And the 2 things I always say is pick up like a double handful of it and just start pulling it apart. If it stretches a nice long distance, you've got protein extraction. If it just immediately breaks into 2 clumps, you're not there. You need to keep going. The other one is grab a handful of it, have your hand mostly open, and just hold your hand out palm down. If the meat sticks in there, where it's kind of stuck between your fingers into your palm, that is a good sign. If it falls right away, you're not at proper level of protein extraction.
It's a DQ blizzard method, right?
Just
hold it upside down for a second.
Yeah. The second one I have in here is not using smoked meat stabilizer with wild game. That wouldn't be in my top.
You must have been out of ideas
anymore.
when you got that.
Honestly, maybe when I wrote this, I didn't do it in order of predominance. Now, there is some argument to be made for using smoked meat stabilizer in wild game. However, you replace that with the encapsulated citric acid and just general all around sanitation. Spray down everything, all your surfaces with like the Maxim hard surface sanitizer or whatever your favorite sanitizer is, and you will be fine. It definitely is not the number 2 mistake people are making. What I would say, it's not enough fat in their snack sticks. We get complaints of people who they'll say it has like a dry texture or doesn't have a lot of flavor. That's almost always from people not adding enough pork fat. We want to be at 25. 20 is the absolute bottom line. 25 to really 30 is really where you want to be. Now, if you're making it out of pork butts, you should be fine because you're basically somewhere in that 25 to 30 range anyways, just right out of the package. What we have a lot of people do is they mix their venison with a pork butt. So now you've taken something with almost no fat and you've added it like 50-50, or even if you do it 60% pork fat and 40% deer, you're down in like the 15% range, possibly a little bit higher, but somewhere in the 15% range. That's not going to give you a good tasting and a nice textured snack stick. If you're using venison, what you want to do is add pork fat to it, straight pork fat. Back pork fat from your butcher is usually somewhere around $1 or something a pound. It's not very expensive. It is way better than just cutting it with a pork butt. Now, if you want to use a pork butt to give you some more volume, you definitely can do that. Just add about 10% extra of the total product's weight in pork fat, and you'll be fine. But the 50-50 split with just pork butt doesn't give enough fat to make a really good snack stick. So number 3 on my old one was too lean. So close there. Haven't changed too much on that. Now I would say the third one is your meat is too warm. That is a huge issue that people don't recognize enough. When we talk to some commercial meat processors, I was talking to Zach, who works at a local meat processor, and he and I were agreeing that 90% of the time, when somebody has an issue with a sausage, a cured sausage, it is almost always either the meat was too warm, you didn't mix it long enough, or you didn't have enough fat. Those 3 issues make up probably more than 90% of people's total problems. So one of the things that having your meat be too, well, there are a few things. Let's go through every stage of it. If you grind your meat and it's too warm, you're going to smear all your fat. It is not going to look nice coming out of the grinder where you have clear separations of fat and lean protein. It's just going to look like a pinkish mush. If you see that, stop right away. You're destroying your product. Get that meat into a freezer. Let it cool down significantly. I always say we want to have, like, if you have it cut into chunks, you want to be able to press in on it and feel some resistance. Almost like how something would feel crusty if it was left out in the open air too long. Similar to that. Then regrind it. It will be way better. There is another problem, though, that the warmer meat gets, you cannot get it to extract proteins. It's just not available. You can mix all you want. I think it's once meat's over 40, 44, 45. It's somewhere in that range. You mix all you want. You're not going to get that nice bind. And one of the reasons the bind's so important is by making all of that meat stick together really well, we're encapsulating any little bits of fat in there, and we're not letting it, when it cooks, it still will melt, but it's going to stay where it is because it's encapsulated in meat. or it's at least going to make it much harder for it to fat out. Fat out is when you don't have that good bind, your fat melts, it then travels to the outside of the sausage, because that's what's going to happen to any moisture. It's going to get expelled from the meat, and then it will either pool in between your casing and your meat, or it's going to drip down on your floor. You have no fat then at that point, and it's a dry, poor textured, somewhat tasteless product. So that's a very important one. Number 4 I had was cooking too quickly. That would still be one of the major ones. I would say that is definitely up there.
Well, I see people oftentimes they can't get their smoker or whatever they're using low enough to start, right? So I think a lot of the times they put it as low as they can and hope for the best, where I think it comes in the planning and, before you even get to processing, that they need to make that decision of what they're going to do, what their temp is, and all that stuff. Sure.
And a good way that people can kind of get around a smoker that doesn't start as low as like 120 degrees. Don't start the smoker until your meat is loaded in there. So then the time it's going to take your smoker to get up to that lowest temperature, your meat will be warming up throughout that whole thing. And also, it is going to take a smoker a longer time to get up to temperature if it's full of cold meat.
I have a question. What is meat shock, and when do we worry about it?
So I will let you know in the question and answer portion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is
excuse me, Mr. This is a 2-part question.
You've destroyed my whole section. I mean, protein shock? Is that what we're talking about?
Is it? I always thought it was like when you bring meat up to temp too quickly or something.
Sure. So
you're supposed to do it at the X amount above the living temperature of said animal. Am I conflating two ideas?
You might be somewhat putting two together.
Sure.
I believe what you're talking about is protein shock, not meat shock. But also, I could be wrong there. We want to start the cooking process within 20 degrees of whatever the animal's living temperature was. So with pork, that's super simple. They're right around 100 degrees. They run a little bit hotter than a human, so we want to start it within 20 degrees of that. We do that to not shock the proteins, to not get them instantly way too far out of what that animal's living temperature was. Heat shock can destroy proteins. That'll hurt bonds, can hurt moisture content, and because it's hurting moisture and fat content, can also affect flavor. Was that good enough answer for you?
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Okay. Then on the other one, I had the last one had under or over stuffing. Yeah, that definitely could be part of the problem. But I think when I started doing this, I was more obsessed with getting that perfect look on the outside of the casing.
Yeah.
Like no wrinkles, no nothing. And it definitely does matter. What you want to do is stuff it until there's a swirling pattern that runs very faintly down a collagen casing. And you want to stuff until you can just barely see that. If you can't see that at all, then you've overstuffed your casing. If you see that really clearly, or even if just before you've cooked it at all, there's wrinkles in the casing or like obvious kind of divots in there, then you're understuffing it as well. But I replace that with this one with Pour Smokehouse thermal processing. So
now you'd rather be understuffed than overstuffed, correct?
So on a bratwurst or something like that, yeah, absolutely, because you can always tighten up your casing with a couple extra twists. That'll help push the meat together and get you a more firm casing. With a snack stick or something that I'm planning on hanging.
Yeah.
You're kind of it's 6 one, half dozen the other. If you overstuff something and then hang it, you run a very strong risk of it snapping and breaking during the cooking process, and then it breaks and falls down on your floor. Understuffing has a tendency to also somewhat lend itself to fatting out. So just do it correctly.
Yeah. Go to Meatgistics, find out how to do it.
What else to say? We've got tons of videos on this. You know what I found out today?
What's that?
The Meatgistics University has more categories than what displays on the homepage. Like when you look under Meatgistics University, there are 2 extra ones that don't display there. And then if you click on Meatgistics University, you have to scroll down farther to get to those last 2.
What are those 2?
Wild game and dry aging.
Oh.
So I've switched that.
Yeah.
I've switched. I left dry aging down there just because we don't have much content in there yet.
Yeah.
I moved wild game up to like the 3rd or something.
I saw that,
so people see it more. Because somebody was asking a question about how to make venison snack sticks. I'm like, we have this.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to Meatgistics University. I'm like, where is wild game? But that's what it was.
Well, good. We found it.
We did. Another thing I just want to quickly talk about, and we will discuss this in a little bit more detail, hopefully on a future episode. But for people who don't know, I did want to point out, and it's probably actually better that Austin isn't up here for this one. Walton's is very heavily involved in lots of different conservation organizations. We are a national sponsor for pheasants and quail forever. And if you look at the other companies that are national sponsors for them, these are much, much bigger companies. We also do a ton with Pass It On Outdoor Mentors, BHA on multiple levels, backcountry hunters and anglers. We've had the National Wild Turkey Federation or Foundation. Foundation? Uh-oh.
Federation sounds awesome.
It does sound awesome, but I'm going to have to look that up. Yeah, it is Federation. Okay. God. Sorry. I'll leave that in. Not that you would ever cut anything out that made me look stupid.
No, we've never done that.
You would usually add that back in.
Everybody gets one, right?
Yeah.
Go, that's my mulligan.
Ridiculous. But it is very important to us as a family-owned company who family are big hunters, big enjoyers of the outdoors, giving some of that back to let's just be perfectly honest, create the next generation of hunters who are going to be our customers. B, also the advertising. But all of these companies, and Ducks Unlimited, all of these companies care about more than just promoting their organizations. They are trying to preserve access to public lands. They are trying to keep public lands beautiful, trying to get more people into the sport. And I believe it's something like 85% of all money that goes to conservation comes from hunters. So it is very important. It's good work. And we're happy to work with those and other organizations to try to continue that. No crazy questions there, Patrick?
I'm trying to sit here. No. I'm like, are they nice people? Of course they are.
Of course they are.
What could you say bad about those guys?
All right. So on to Meat Matters. And this is going to be a short podcast today without Austin. It turns out he talks a lot more than I think he does. It's a lot faster getting through all those things without somebody chirping in my ear about being wrong all the time.
That's you and me. I don't think that's Austin.
No, I'm obviously just making fun of him. Okay, so first, we've talked about them a bunch, but Meeting Place, MEATING Place, is an online resource that we use a lot, and I highly recommend people go sign up for at least the online version of the account. I believe the online version is totally free. You can also get a magazine, but they do an amazing job at keeping up with the day-to-day news of the meat processing world. They really are a great resource, and they have a couple of great articles, and definitely one of their articles in their magazine this month was really well done. The main article is about reusing energy and water in processing plants. They talk about Nichols Meat Processing in Pennsylvania. So the plant burnt down in 2005. And they started making some changes then, more based around sustainability, reusing energy and water. And then in 2017, they really changed it with sustainability as almost like a main part of what they wanted to do. A couple of interesting things. I had no idea that offal was in such high demand, but apparently in China, offal is in, like, high quality offal is in incredibly high demand. So they're taking all their offal, what would be waste from slaughter in a lot of places, and sending that over to China, and apparently getting at least somewhat of a premium for it. One of the interesting things I read in the article was that for COVID regulations, they put in thermal cameras that would be able to see if their temperatures or their employees were running a temperature, mask detection, which I don't know what that means, probably just a video camera, but negative grade pressure rooms so that nothing was allowed to get out and spread. So what that means is they kept the air pressure inside certain rooms where people were lower than surrounding rooms and the environment outside. What that does is any air that transfers is going to transfer in and not out. So if you have a low pressure room next to a high pressure room, the high pressure is naturally going to try and travel to the low pressure. So anyone who's in that high pressure room, if they're sick, it's going to travel to the low pressure room. Whereas vice versa, it will not. It will stay in that room.
Reminds me of that scene in Outbreak where her outfit ripped wide open. They were in a room where only air could
the Dustin Hoffman and the monkey movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little monkey thing was cute. I don't remember. Is it a gibbon?
I don't know
what it was.
I don't know. Cute. Yeah, that probably started the craze of people wanting to have little tiny monkeys as pets. They didn't get the message of the movie, apparently.
No, not at all. That those things should be left alone.
Yes.
Well, the message of the movie also was whatever that bomb they dropped.
Oh, geez.
That's firebomb.
That's one of those movies that, like, when commercials still existed, you don't watch until the end because you're like, oh, I
know what's going on, and now we get excited.
Yeah.
But their goal is to ramp up to 120 head per hour. That would be their max output, which is just an absolutely incredible amount. In the Meeting Place magazine as well, they talked about something Patrick found out this year. People really like lamb.
Yep.
So we're trying to figure out exactly why this happened, but in pounds sold, lamb jumped 24% over last year.
That's a big percentage.
That's huge.
Well, yeah, I thought you were going to say 6 to 8 to 12.
24. No. Now, I like lamb, but I'm not a huge fan of it, mostly because I don't really like the way the fat tastes.
My lamb intake this year went up 100% because I had never had it before.
Nope.
So
nope.
And it's funny. That's where we kind of differed. I thought that's what gave it kind of the. I don't want to overuse creaminess when talking about fat, but sure, it imparted some more texture appeal to other parts of the protein that if fat wasn't there, it was lacking for sure.
Absolutely. Which one was that? Was that the
Rosemary Dijon?
Rosemary Dijon from Spiceology. That was a really good one. But we think what happened was when people went to the supermarket and couldn't get the cut they were looking for or couldn't find really maybe anything else, they're like, well, I'll try lamb,
yeah,
I guess, and then found out they really liked it. Because you can get it at most grocery stores. Like the Dillons here, I think all the Dillons here have lamb cuts out all the time. And
yeah, they just, I don't know if they're not unappealing or people don't have good recipes or they didn't grow up with it part of their normal cuisine. So
that's probably what it is. I mean, I know it's a big Mediterranean protein source, but growing up, lamb definitely was not
on the menu at my house
at all. I don't think I'd had it until I was in college at some point. And so Greek people eat a lot of lamb. And I went to visit my girlfriend's parents and they were having lamb. So that was the first time I had it. It was good.
Yeah, I thought you said there was an increase in lamb. I thought, oh, well, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 came out. But I think that was a couple years ago now. So
yeah, I don't think that had a part to play in it. But it was 24% up by pounds and 17% up by dollars.
Well, maybe is it affordable compared to other meats out there right now?
That's a good question. No.
I wonder if that's why people.
No, lamb is generally pretty expensive.
That's what I thought.
Because the animal has to be slaughtered fairly young. Obviously, it's a lamb, and it doesn't have anywhere near the volume that beef, pork, anything like that would have. While we're talking about slaughtering plants, all of that stuff, there was a great article in the Capital Press. It was meat plant startups face barriers, and it was just listing the barriers out. It said labor, obviously finding people to work right now is incredibly hard. Capital, it said while the USDA is giving out grants and a lot of things like that, there is still a significant amount of investment capital or something that you're going to need to get you through maybe in the first couple of years before business really picks up. So volume, you need lots of cattle, not just lots of cattle, either in your area or that can easily be brought to your area, but they need to be consistent and of the right age. So having, one rancher in your area probably is not going to be sufficient. There was in the article, they were talking about a plant that opened somewhere around Seattle, Washington, but they had grossly overestimated the amount of head that would be ready throughout the year. So,
I know one of our last podcasts we're talking about, like I said, all the horrible things happening to ranchers right now, and now I'm like kicking myself for not thinking of the title, like Not So Jolly Rancher.
Oh, that would have been a
man.
Maybe we'll talk about ranching a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll wait a few episodes and hit you guys
and do it again. So the next one is odor and placement. So you have to be far enough away from any major populous centers where you're not a nuisance, because it is hard to make a meat processing plant smell like anything else than a meat processing plant, but also close enough where the commute isn't going to make it impossible to get people in there. So that kind of ties back to the labor one. And then community. So it says, one of the biggest challenges with starting a meat plant is a disagreement among stakeholders, including local farmers, businesses, agencies, environmental groups, and community members.
Stakeholder pun. Nice.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Maybe there's your title. Stakeholders. Although we should keep that for one where we actually do something with steak.
Okay.
And then the last one is experience. I don't know if people listening to this would think that that's like an easy thing to pick up, but it is not. Like an experienced meat cutter is very, very specialized. That took that person a long time to learn how to do well, and learn how to do quickly and well. Not a simple process. When we went to, go ahead.
Well, we might be echoing the same thing. Where a gentleman at a meat processing plant we went to, I believe a state over, Nebraska, was saying that he won't hire people with too much experience cutting meat because he doesn't want their bad techniques or habits to get in the way of how he wants to show them.
That's good. I forgot about that point.
Yeah. So it's I think that depends on like who you're looking for, the age of the person and stuff like that, and what town and a million variables, I'm sure. But yeah, I just remembered him saying that and being like, oh, wow, this is one of those, like, they want apprenticeship. They want rookies in there. They want people that they can just, tell them exactly what they're looking for.
Fair enough. But you need that experience to teach
exactly
those people.
You got to want it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So you still do need the experience. What was most impressive so we got a chance to tour a plant, and they had bison and beef hanging in the exact same room, just on different lines. You don't really get a good idea for how big a bison is until you see it next to
it's just the carcass of it. Anything that even gives it mass, so to speak, like height, is gone out the window, and it's still just this giant atlas of a piece of beef in front of you. But
you think about like add that big fur and the little horns on top, and
the most impressive thing to me was the second plant we went to. We might only went to 2 plants, but for how small it was, their use of space was incredible. I mean, they were building, I'm sure it was a well-oiled machine already, but that giant thing that they were using.
Oh, like, the jerky thing?
Yeah, they're using
2
height
stories.
well. Yeah, it looked like a Willy Wonka moment where like there was we're in a room full of 20 some odd people working. And, I mean, not even looking at us, not that anyone's being rude, but it was just very Oompa Loompa-esque where they were and I'm like, is that guy on a ladder pouring something into something 10 feet up off the ground? It was just really cool to see.
Yep. So they would take big tubs of jerky up, like they'd go up these stairs to the second floor of this machine, put it in, and then the machine would vibrate
and sift out certain
sift
quantity,
to like different sizes and move them to different areas and then bring them back together to put the correct amount in each bag.
Yeah, so it was weighing and sorting and then about to go into vac bags and be sealed.
It was pretty awesome.
And then someone's down there like, oh, that one's not good enough, and knocking them off the line. But there was even an air hose thing, I think it was things that were imperfect via laser. It would just go, oh, that's wrong, and kick it off the line. That was so cool.
Well, to me, the most impressive thing, though, was the 4 meat cutters that they had working back in the room. So they brought a half on a trolley, and that thing was gone in what?
Oh, dude,
5-10 minutes?
Yeah, we weren't there. It was because it's a nice cold room, so you don't want to stay in there too long.
Right.
But yeah, and everyone's just in the zone. Just doing so much pounds of meat right there.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. And no one's going out of the way to try to hurt themselves. They're doing exactly by the book. They're all sanitizer supposed to be. They have on the big. It looked like there was a guy back there looked like Leatherface at work. It was really cool.
We talked about a while ago the 400-acre processing plant that I think they're calling a sustainability ranch or something like that. It's up in Nebraska. It's the ranchers who have gotten sick of losing out on so much of the profits, so they're opening their own processing plants. They have moved forward. And they're asking for $21.5 million in TIF financing. So TIF is tax increasement financing. It's a public financing method that's used as a subsidy for redevelopment, infrastructure, and other community improvement projects in many countries. I had to look that up. I did not know what a TIF financing was.
False. So it's actually short for Tiffany.
So Tiffany just finances the whole thing. All right, and then there was an article, and I'm going to try to get in touch with the person who wrote this. It's in the Rawling Times. That's at wyomingnews.com, and it is from just a guest columnist by the name of Barbara Parsons, but it is to age or not to age wild meat. Really interesting, kind of doesn't necessarily go against what we would tell people to do, but it is a different opinion on it. So I just want to hit a few highlights of it. And then we definitely will post the link to this article in the podcast posts. One of her big things was hang a thermometer near the carcass. Ideal temperature is 34 degrees, but it's unlikely you're going to achieve that. The warmer it is, the closer it needs to be watched. She says, check daily for mold and smell. When mold first appears, butcher. Usually that takes about a week. Now, obviously, there are going to be many things that come into that. So that's not what we're recommending you do. But this is a person who has been doing it for a very long time. She said when she started, she always butchered pretty much right away. Then something happened. She didn't go into detail what it was, but they were hanging in their garage and they weren't able to get to it for about a week. It had blue mold on the outside of it. She was going to get rid of it, but then remembered an experience she had at a local steakhouse where she saw into their cooler and their meat had blue mold on it, and their butcher or their meat cutter there was like, that's what we want. That's why our steaks are so tender. So she got the help of an experienced butcher. They took care of the mold, all the dry skin, and she said it was the best wild game she had ever had. Now, this is another quote from the article. It says, while we're always careful with sanitation, I now keep a container of soapy bleach water nearby when butchering. I wipe tables down as needed and keep knives clean and sharp. it was told that only bleach neutralizes the prions of CWD, but I think there's still so much unknown about the disease, and caution seems prudent. And I 100% agree. I would recommend that be your practice for anything you do, whether you're hanging it or not. Sanitation's unbelievably important. While some people say you can cook poorly handled meat to a safety level, a couple things to keep in mind there. One, you can't cook the bad taste out of spoiled meat. And two, there are certain things, botulism creates a spore if it's left in there long enough that is heat resistant to over 200 degrees. So that's not always the case. Instead, be safe. My recommendation would be like, if you have a question, get rid of it. It's just not worth it. So
that's usually where I'm at too. If I have to think about it more than 30, I go, it's not worth me being up all night the next day, potential hospital and all that stuff. So especially the type of protein, right?
What do you mean the type of protein?
Well, I just mean poultry. I'm not touching pork. Yeah.
No.
Pork's a little bit safer and beef's a little bit safer than pork, but yeah.
Be super careful with poultry.
I had rotisserie style chicken, right, from Walmart that's like already done up in like a little container. You know, I take it because I'm 30-year-old going on 18 myself, so I'll have that. But I forgot about it in my fridge, right? Opened it already. Look at the bottom, and this was back in October. It says it expired till November 24th, and I go, that must mean if it's not open.
Right.
And I would still not even, because I'm like, you're kidding. 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Chicken in the fridge. I go, I just got to throw it away. It looked fine, smelt fine. Took a bite. I was like, I'm just not even gonna go for it.
Yep. My wife had they're called Morningstar grilling crumbles. I've talked about them a bunch on here. She had done some, just cooks them in a pan, and then she put it in the fridge. I took it out because I was just gonna make myself a burrito. I was exhausted. I just wanted to go eat and go to sleep. Opened it. I smelled it. I go, doesn't smell great. I let her smell it, and she's like, yeah, it smells fine. Heated up my burrito, everything in it, took a bite out of it, spit it right out. I'm like, why did I question myself?
Yeah.
I'm like, if it doesn't smell good, don't eat it.
Well, I'm the kind of person the whole day is ruined. Even if I'm not sick, I'll be like, I need to be near.
Just in case.
Just in case. So it's a mental game.
Yeah.
And we all know that's worse than the physical game sometimes. So for me, yeah, I just got to chuck it in the trash and act like I ate. I'm just like, oh, I'm full. Who cares?
Worst. No, not the worst, but one of the worst food poisonings I ever had was from turkey. I was hanging a thermometer, and what I now and other people think happened because it was so fast was the thermometer pushed down like as it cooked and got into the cavity.
Oh.
So it was just reading open air, and it's like, oh, you're done. And that was not a fun couple of days.
I bet.
Did
it even but it looked done?
Yeah. So looked and tasted amazing.
And turkey's one of those. Oh, yeah. And because I've had a touch undercooked turkey as well. Phenomenal flavor.
So juicy.
Phenomenal flavor.
So juicy.
But yeah.
This is incredible.
Giant big bird. That must be tough.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, what can you do about it?
You learn from it and never make the same mistake again.
Yeah, absolutely do. Okay. Couple of things. This is coming out on Friday. We probably won't have them quite yet, but by next week at some point, we are going to have Walton's and Meatgistics branded large coolers. Those are made in the USA. It's a company down in Texas. When we get them, we'll do a bunch of stuff on social media about them. But it's like the Yeti style, but made in the US, and it's going to be Walton's and Meatgistics branded on the same one. So not one won't be Walton's, one they'll be the same. We've got this shirt for those of you who are watching on the podcast. This is a different Walton shirt. It instead of saying Meatgistics on the front, it's like a light heathery grayish white. It says Walton's, and on the back we have the big John Brown from the Kansas State Capitol. He's got a shotgun in one hand and a fishing rod in the other. We changed that. And this shirt is a partnership with BHA, Backcountry's Hunters and Anglers, Kansas chapter, and they will be getting a portion of the sales for that. So support them. Buy these. I also think it just looks awesome.
Really awesome shirt.
Awesome. Yes, very much. Other than that, we have some new Excalibur seasonings in stock. The blackberry pepper is the one I'm just most intrigued by.
Mm-hmm.
The Sweet Havana was really good too, but the blackberry pepper, I keep going back to it. Like I keep just opening the shaker and smelling it because it smells exactly like blackberry ice cream. So I want to get just some vanilla ice cream and put that blackberry pepper rub on it and see what it tastes like.
Do something extreme with it. Maybe make a new recipe for disaster. Haven't done one of those.
There's tons of things. Yeah, we could do with that. But really, what I want to do is get a McDonald's soft serve. And put some on it.
Just soft serve on its own, right? When was the last time you just had good soft serve?
12? Like I was 12, probably. I never get a chance to eat anything fun. My wife is way too hard.
You're kidding me. So this is the figure of someone who doesn't eat ice cream? Is what I'm looking at?
That was mean. That was uncalled for. Uncalled for. A couple of just real quick things that I just want to mention. McDonald's and Beyond Meat are teaming up and they're selling like a plant version that's basically a Beyond Meat patty at McDonald's. I think it was only 8 locations. We talked about this a couple episodes ago, but apparently it's going well because Beyond Meat's stock has gone up like 7% in the last couple of days based on that. And then beef exports are up nearly 60% to Central America so far in 2021. Now, we talked about in the past, something's going on with Central America's beef market. They're limiting exports. So I don't have more information on what that is. So that could be what that 60% is at least partially about. But still, that is great news for U.S. food producers. All right. That's what I got. Patrick, you got anything to talk about?
No. Just like, comment, subscribe as much as you can, guys. It really does matter.
I already said that.
Well, double down.
See you guys.
Later.
Thanks for checking out the Meatgistics podcast. To shop everything but the meat, head on over to waltonsinc.com. And to get your meat processing questions answered by experts and enthusiasts alike, head on over to our online community at meatgistics.com. Walton's, everything but the meat.